drone program that these drones are launching from hives throughout the city. So I'm just going to kick it off and hand it over to Mayor Keller.
Okay, well, good afternoon, and we have been talking about drones a lot. The difference is now they're finally out in the field and they're working and they're helping us fight crime, and that's what we're going to demonstrate today. Now, as I always do, I want to reemphasize how we got to this point. It was about now 3 years ago, the chief and I and our leadership team made a decision that we have to fight crime better and faster, and we can't necessarily wait for more and more officers. We want more officers, and we continue to get more officers. But this notion that just someday we're going to wake up and have hundreds more officers is naive. And so we decided we have to face the reality in front of us, which is how do we fight crime differently? And the answer was civilians and technology. We've talked a lot about civilians, and primarily that has to do with the creation of the ACS department and the fact that 120,000 calls have been taken from the 911 system by civilians instead of APD. That also means the National Guard. We talk about how the National Guard are providing civilian support. And it also means things like our PSAs that do traffic stops. So the more work civilians do, the more we free up officers to fight violent crime. This piece is about the second part of that equation, technology. You've heard about gunshot detection. You've heard about our license plate readers, the thousands of cameras that we've put up, even automated speed enforcement, which kind of work both ways. They give tickets, but it also doesn't take an officer to do it. So it's also freeing up officers. So the drones are sort of, we hope the last piece in the technology puzzle. Now, the technology crime fighting shield, I want to remind everyone, as a whole is only over 20% of the city, but parts of it operate throughout the city. And we want to have it over 100% of the city, but we need some more time to do that. In the meantime, the drones are now effectively deployed from their hives all over the city. So the reach of the drones, the ability for the drones to help is now citywide. Now, drones do a number of things. First off, I just want to acknowledge as a person, like drones can be annoying. I don't like them when they're flying over me in a park, and we can all hate on drones in our lives. My kids have drones and they hit me with it in the face. And so I'm just saying I'm not a huge fan of drones, but this is about law enforcement and this is serious. And these drones are helping us fight crime, and that's why we need them and that's why we're using them. Because these drones are much better for officers. They're a much faster response. So they're located at different locations throughout the city, and we deploy them and they're able to get to a scene and put eyes on the scene safely from a distance in a much, much more efficient way than actually having to drive on streets, right? We can see how it's much faster to fly line of sight. And of course, they can also look in backyards and chase people and all of these other things much, much faster, like 10, 100 times faster than an officer that's dispatched ever could. So we also know, again, that the safety component is very important. And I want to emphasize there's both sides of this coin, right? Our drones are obviously unarmed, just in case somebody had that question. So the drones can actually assess a situation that not only keeps surrounding civilians safer, but of course keeps our officers safer. So that's why drones are being used and recognized all over the country as a best practice. But that's also why we now have them here in Albuquerque. And of course, they're dialed into our real-time crime center. So the first move of what we tried to do to rebuild the Albuquerque Police Department was rebuild the real-time crime center. And I think you've all heard about that. But the drones are now dialed into that. So that's where they're controlled from, flown from, and so forth. And that way we can also connect them to 911 dispatch. Okay, so we're going to demo actually how they work. And for all of that, I think I'm handing it to the chief next. Chief Medina. Actually, Deputy Chief J.J. Griego, who's of course in charge of all our technology efforts, among other things.
Thanks, sir. We're going to switch it around. Good afternoon. I'm Deputy Chief J.J. Griego, G-R-I-E-G-O. And I just wanted to, we kind of changed it up so I can explain a little bit more about what we're talking about. When we talk about drone as a first responder, what we're referring to is a true drone as a first responder program. And what I mean by that is there are departments that say they have a drone as a first responder program, but it's actually a patrol led. And what that means is an officer actually has to go there, go into his trunk, get out a drone, launch the drone. There is value in that. However, our program is a little bit different in that the drones are flown remotely from the real-time crime center by a civilian FAA certified pilot. In other words, they can respond to calls and get on scene much faster than an officer would be able to get there and launch a drone from the trunk of his car. At this time, we have 6 docks located throughout the city of Albuquerque and 10 drones, and as the mayor said, we plan on expanding that. Right now, we can cover pretty much most of the city at this point, but there are some areas that we obviously need to fill in gaps. The drone itself is, it'll go up to 45 miles an hour, which may not seem that fast because we're all accustomed to driving in our cars on the freeway at 65, but the drone flies from point to point. In other words, it's not having to deal with traffic, it's not having to deal with stop signs, street lights, and all that other stuff. So we have found that the drone gets there much faster than a police officer driving in traffic. The drone has about a 64 megapixel, I think that's the highest package that can be installed on it right now, 65 megapixel camera. We're able to read a license plate from about 800 feet away. Which is pretty amazing. And we also have a thermal camera located on the drone. So in those instances where we've had somebody that's hiding in a field or under a porch or difficult to locate, we're able to also use the thermal imaging to be able to find those individuals. The range is about 7.5 miles as advertised. We're seeing in some areas up to 8 miles of range. Some areas we're seeing a little bit less, but we're seeing pretty much what's been advertised. And the drones themselves have about a 40-minute flight time. So that's something that we have not seen in the past. And I know the mayor talked about getting hit with drones. Our drones are equipped with collision avoidance software. When we first got them, the vendor handed one to me and told me to crash it. It's a $17,000 drone, by the way, so this one wasn't ours, so I tried my best, and I was unable to crash that drone. We've been live since about August 17th, and since then we've had about 202 flights of our drones. We've had roughly 4 arrests based on the drones alone. We're going to show a video here in a little bit of one of those instances where the arrest may not have been made without the drone being present to be able to track the individual. And what are we using them for? You know, there's a multitude of purposes that a drone can be used for, and I think we are on the nascent phase of drones in law enforcement, public safety, and city use. There are entities throughout the country that are experimenting with different uses of the drone. Currently, we're using ours to locate people, locate vehicles, find fires in the bosque. There are a lot of ways that we are currently using them, and I think that with drones, it's going to be one of those things where in law enforcement we go back and we say, how did we ever operate without drones? I can't believe you guys were able to do that, because the drone and the helicopter are complementary. As the mayor talked about before, it takes about an hour to spin up a helicopter if I don't have one that's already up in the air. The drone can be launched in seconds. The drone can also get lower, look under patio covers, and get into places where we can't necessarily see with a helicopter. And that's critical for both officer safety and community safety as well. So we know where somebody's at before we go into a backyard and both of us are surprised, which sometimes has adverse outcomes. Chief?
You know, the first thing I want to start with is just talking about the fact that we do have the most advanced drone program in the state of New Mexico. We were the first agency to have a FFA approval for out of line of sight authorization to fly our drones. We're the first ones to have hives functional and working, and for that I want to thank Deputy Chief Griego. When we started this project at the beginning of the year, I challenged him and Anthony Montano, the director of the Real-Time Crime Center, that I wanted this program to be online by July, and they were able to meet my expectations, and we were able to launch the program. For me, it is a matter of the fact that we're able to get eyes, video on scenes faster than ever before. Andrew Rodriguez is in the back. I forgot Andrew. Thank you for all your hard work also, Andrew. And for me, it is having the right team that was able to implement this while we wanted to get this going. On September 11th, officers were dispatched to Pat Hurley Community Center for an aggravated assault with a firearm. The victim reported a male pointed a rifle at her head, threatened to shoot her, and demanded her belongings. When officers arrived, the suspect, an adult male and two juveniles, female juveniles attempted to flee on foot. We deployed a drone within minutes, and here is how it all unfolded. I just want to remind everybody that without the drone, without a doubt, you will see through the course of this how we would have lost these individuals, one of the individuals, and never taken him into custody. How we were able to gather evidence, and you will see the success of the drone program. I want to thank Mayor. You heard it from Mayor himself. He's not a big fan of drones on the personal level, but he was instrumental in ensuring that we had everything we needed to start this program, because it was good for public safety and it was good to keep our officers safe and the community safe. So let's go ahead and start this video, and we'll go through here. And you'll see the drones provided real-time update on this throughout it.
Then we'll do that once it's ready. 10:30, get the backpack, real estate, goggles, red hoodie, black pants. We were using those Hurley. Pushing go back Hurley, red hoodie, jacket, black pants. Backpack with a sharp on it. How many some more you just through the area, lower Pat Hurley?
Units to start to lower Pat Hurley Park.
So much.
You just got another one to DOT.
We still, obviously still running. Lower Pat Hurley last team on the tennis court.
He's going RTC to let you know he's going southbound on Regina. You have the drone up in the area.
You want to get some more units down here? I'm out with two people that are victims of it. I'm at the top.
Male is going to eastbound Rincon Mill. And the female now has a backpack.
Weapons in the backpack, just FYI, him, it's a short rifle, is what they said. From 124, that unit, that's going to be him right there. Good?
Hey, stop right there. Hey, Matt, we're dealing with all that. Male in red hoodie, we got a female over there, being very nice.
What's your 20 with the female?
Those units, that man was going to be going northbound through the ditch, he's going to go east side.
Feeding southwest units start Pat Hurley Park, lower Pat Hurley Park.
You were like, stores on 24 pretty items every day, along with those units. So as a male, it's going to be at the intersection of Olympia and Mimi. He's still continuing east. He took off his red hoodie. He's wearing a white shirt, black pants on 49th for Olympia. 124, please start one more unit over here. We have 2 10 Male is down, jumped the fence. He's going to be at 449th Street, northwest.
Get the ground! Well, I need you. Put your guns back. Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, obviously the video was shortened and edited so we could have it in a reasonable amount of time, but there's some key things that I want us all to look at, and Mayor kind of touched on it, how this keeps both sides safe. The officers safe and the individuals safe that we're trying to take into custody. At the beginning of the video, you're going to notice the officers were under the impression, had been given information that this subject was armed with the rifle and the rifle was in the backpack. And you could see how they were keeping their distance, they were getting close, they were being very cautious, and you could hear the update. The rifle's in the backpack, the female now has the backpack, and you could see how their tactics quickly transitioned towards the end of this, where all of a sudden it's a foot chase and the officers are, this is a foot chase with an individual that we're able to quickly take into custody. And I think we have to go back and recognize they dealt with this individual in a manner that they felt he wasn't armed. Running down, grabbing somebody, taking him into custody, goes to show how our level of threat was based off of the information the drone was giving, that the individual had dropped the backpack, no longer in possession of the firearm. So you could see how it quickly changes how we respond to scenes and how it does keep the individual that we're trying to keep custody safe. But at the same time, the officers had that information and they felt safe. So there's so much in this video that I think really exemplifies why we chose to go in the direction and go all out on our drone program from the very start. You can see we would have lost this individual in the streets. I think it's kind of funny, you know, he chose not to jump into the yard with the dog. He went to the other yard. And as you see the unedited video, you'll see he clearly saw the dog and decided that I'm not going to jump in the backyard with Fido and Fido possibly take me into custody. But you can see where we would have lost him several times, but the drone kept officers en route. Takes off his jacket, ditches his jacket. So this is information and a case that we probably would have never caught this individual, and we probably never would have recovered evidence had we not had the drone. We know it was transferred to the females. So the live real-time updates that the drone is able to give us were key for us in that. Having this run out of the RTCC with somebody whose full-time job is running the drones really exemplifies how good they are to communicate, and that they're able to see the key pieces of evidence and put the key information out to officers on the ground quickly, which sometimes an officer who does this just part-time every once in a while from launching from his trunk isn't going to have the same effect. So all in all, I saw this video last week and we thought it was a perfect video for us to kind of showcase to the community as to why we felt drones was so important, the crucial role they're going to play in the future. And just remember this, Mayor talked about technology throughout this city. The biggest, weakest link we have in technology is we all wish we had more cameras. Cameras are the key, getting eyes, recording crime. In the near future, these drones will self-launch on shot spotter activations, and within 90 seconds, we hope to have video over where shots were fired. So imagine the fact that within 90 seconds, we're recording criminals, suspects leaving, victims' condition, victims' possibility of being on the ground so we can start medical treatment. There is so much information that is going to come from these in the future as they're able to self-launch. Think of the Mayor talking and Deputy Chief Griego that sometimes it takes us 15, 20 minutes to drive to a certain part of town for an officer to check for a vehicle that was in the area that looks suspicious. Now, within 2 minutes, we could have a drone there checking if that car is still there, following that car till the officers get there, or if the car's not there anymore, being able to tell the officer you no longer have to respond. So it is also going to make us more efficient in the future, and it's going to help us do what we've started from the beginning, ensuring that badges and guns go to calls where we need a badge and a gun, and if not, we're getting other support networks to help them fill in gaps so that we could keep our people being proactive out in the streets arresting individuals. And with that, we will take questions. Yes?
Just to reconfirm, each drone costs $17,000, correct?
Yes, JJ. I don't do the money part. JJ, that's why JJ's here. I just say, hey, go do me this, and then they got to find the money.
And the drones, will their mileage and range be based off of the starting point of the hive, or is that just a general 8 miles?
The starting point of the hive.
Okay. And will you guys be releasing a general area as to where the hive locations are?
No.
Okay.
I don't want nobody to damage my hives.
That was
Okay.
Is there any specific locations in town where there's not a hive right now that you can share?
I wouldn't share gaps in coverage.
You know, on that, do you want to talk about the deterrence value too? And what
Yes.
we know?
You know, I want criminals to know just because there's not a cop in sight doesn't mean we're not watching you. Just because you can't see a camera in the neighborhood doesn't mean we're not watching you. And I want you to know that if somebody calls on you, within 90 seconds, we have the capability of recording you. And one of the things we saw, 2009, I was in charge of property crimes, 2010, Deputy Chief Griego and Deputy Chief Vega were actually worked with me in property crimes. And if you look back, we had extremely low property crime rates when I was in charge there. And the one thing we did is we created a sense of there is going to be accountability for crime. And we arrested a lot of people. And there is a deterrence. Me and George Vega started the bait car program as it stands today. Their old bait car program used to park the bait car in front of an officer's house every morning. We deployed them throughout the city. We changed how those were deployed. And the biggest thing we learned is there's a deterrence factor in people thinking that there's more cars out there that are bait cars. So we don't want to share the details of this because the more that individuals sense and know that there's accountability in the area and they could be watched by a drone, the more it's going to make them think twice about committing crime in the city. Yes?
In in that foot chase, was the officer getting real-time information in her ear or his ear from the pilot?
All over the radio. I don't know if the officer had an earpiece, all of them did, but you could hear everything you heard about the person just dropped the backpack, the female has it. That information was actual radio traffic that the officers were listening to.
Are there plans to get televisions in the vehicles to get that feed in the...
I believe they could already watch this feed, though they'll be able to watch the live feed off their computers at some point.
At some point.
At some point. And it also goes to our body cameras. We're in the process of seeing how we could move towards more live feed off body cameras for supervisors.
I know you said that we were planning to use this for like finding people and fires, but are you guys going to be prioritizing like homicide crimes, or is there a specific subcategory?
Let me make it clear. We were doing fires because that was an issue at the time. These are a crime fighting tool. We want to use drones to take criminals to jail, apprehend criminals, record crimes in progress so we could have better prosecutions, find license plates of vehicles fleeing areas, follow them so officers can get behind and try to attempt to craft stuff. This is a crime fighting tool above all. Yes.
Final question. In previous news conferences, you've said that technology like this would reduce police shootings, OISs, violent crimes. Do you believe that with this now that, all of those stats will drop and you'll see a, big improvement?
I think one thing we need to remember is those stats are based off of the number of police contacts, and the number one factor that impacts officer-involved shootings is obviously number one, a criminal with a firearm or a deadly threat to officers, a knife, a gun. That's the biggest thing that impacts that number. But the second biggest thing is the number of contacts we have with individuals to take them into custody. And I think it's hard for us to base a number off of with no background behind it. What does 13 mean when you have 7,000 arrests? What does 16 mean when you have 14,000 arrests? The DA's office has indicated me that APD for the third year in a row is in record-setting pace to outnumber the number of arrests we've had in previous years. So when we look at officer-involved shootings, we need to be fair. We need to have a real understanding of the impact and what the result of these shootings are. And so many of them are officers trying to take a violent, known criminal into custody. And as we increase that number of those types of contacts with the community, we are naturally, through statistics, going to see an increased number of officer-involved shootings. And it's based off of the individual's actions, not our officers.
Is APD planning to make data available to the public about every time a drone is deployed and the reason why on like a website or something like that?
Yes, at some point in time, but it's going to take some time, and I'm going to monitor it. If it becomes overburdening, I will stop. But initially, JJ told me, yes, we're going to be doing that, but I'll tell you, I'm not going to devote one person to update this daily, and we lose one person just so people could have a sense of why we launch drones. Sí. Es muy importante que nosotros podemos usar technology hoy en estos días a hacer cierto que los oficiales pueden hacer algo y las personas que estamos buscando, ellos también, nosotros sabemos que ellos están haciendo, porque la cosa que queremos hacer es estar seguro que las personas, los oficiales y las personas que nos estamos buscando, que ellos está más seguro por ellos, y es la posible que nosotros no podemos usar force en ellos si no tenemos que.
Hablaba de ShotSpotter y drones trabajando a la par. ¿Puede hablar un poquito de eso también en español?
Cuando podemos, en la tiempo que viene, nosotros vamos a estar cierto que cuando agarramos un ShotSpotter activation, el drone va a ir a ese lugar y va a comenzar a agarrar video por los oficiales a tener. Si la persona que tiró los balazos o mató a alguien todavía están ahí en 90 seconds, a nosotros es posible que vamos a tener video de ellos.
¿Cuál es el mensaje que tiene para la comunidad y sobre todo para las personas que cometen crímenes aquí, de que aunque un oficial no esté presente, hay un dron que los va a estar vigilando en todo momento.
Ya es muy importante que nosotros podemos estar cierto que la comunidad de los criminales saben que nomás porque no puedes estar cierto que un oficial está ahí, que hay la posible que nosotros estamos mirándote con un drone.
Thank you guys.
Thanks. You know, the one thing I just real quick that I want to add on real quick, JJ just brought up a great point. If you look at our conviction rates, they've only increased if we've increased technology. ShotSpotter helps us paint a picture of when shots were fired, who fired shots. Recently, we had a homicide investigation where the person tried to claim self-defense, but ShotSpotter came and clearly showed that after the initial shots were fired, it was minutes later when the final shots were fired, and we charged. That was one of the factors as to why we were able to charge somebody, and that's good evidence when we get to court for somebody who's going to say, oh, it's not true, that didn't happen, it was actually faster. That's going to be key evidence for us to show it was not faster, it was actually minutes, and you did have time because we didn't have video of the whole incident. The video produced by these drones is great evidence for us to be able to gain a conviction or to force individuals into doing a plea agreement and taking accountability for the charge. So I know we talk about safety and a lot of other things, but we cannot overlook the fact that the evidence these produce are outstanding for us to be able to prove cases and prove people are guilty. Thanks. Good job.